In the summer of 2023, a video of Florida woman Anakah Olon went viral on TikTok, and it showed her screaming while being arrested by law enforcement in Bonita Springs. The incident had begun with officers probing flower vendor Norma Garcia, originally from Nicaragua, about selling her goods on the side of the road. She'd reportedly been warned in the past that doing so was against the law. Olson pulled up in the driving lane, stopped her vehicle, and approached Garcia. In the moments that followed, Olson was reportedly told by the officers to move her car and that she was causing a safety hazard for other drivers. Before Olson could comply, however, she was arrested and shown in bystander cell phone footage yelling out that she was only trying to give the flower vendor $20. She was charged with refusing to comply with the cops' lawful orders and resisting an officer without violence. In the aftermath of the footage going viral, Olson addressed the incident and was quoted as telling WBBH, "I didn't know it was illegal to give panhandlers money. I do it all the time." The woman maintained not knowing that Garcia was being arrested at the time and that she'd only tried to help out someone who was having a bad day. Many of the users reacting to the footage were sympathetic to the woman's plight and argued that the police had overreacted. Number 6. Kate Scottow. Englishwoman Kate Scottow was arrested at her home in Hitchin, Hertfordshire, on December the 1st of 2018, following an online argument with a transgender activist. Stephanie Hayden had filed a complaint against 38-year-old Scottow, accusing her of harassment. Among the allegations was that Scottow had tweeted defamatory messages from 2 different profiles and referred to Hayden by using male pronouns. In the fall of 2018, Hayden had filed a similar complaint against sitcom writer Graham Linehan, who was accused of dead-naming. He was given a verbal harassment warning by West Yorkshire police, who forbade him from communicating with Hayden online. Linehan later stated that he had no intention of contacting Hayden, adding that being banned from doing so was a bit like asking me to never contact Charlie Sheen. As a result of 47-year-old Hayden's Twitter fight with Scottow, the latter was arrested in the presence of her autistic 10-year-old daughter and her son, who was still being breastfed at the time. Scottow was detained for 7 hours and later found guilty of persistently using a public communications network to cause annoyance and anxiety. She appealed the decision, and public reactions to Scottow's case were mixed. Some argued that the authorities had had a heavy-handed reaction to the Twitter feud, while others argued Scottow had been justly punished for being transphobic. The law ultimately agreed with the former point of view when she was cleared, and her conviction was overturned a few years later, meaning that she'd basically been arrested for nothing. Number 5. Colleen Loud. In October of 2022, New Hampshire woman Colleen Loud was at her Northampton mobile home when the police knocked on her door. Officer Matt McHugh asked Loud if she'd heard a car crash that had taken place in the area, and the woman told him she had not, before closing the door. The 68-year-old had reportedly been sitting at home eating ice cream and preparing to watch a baseball game on TV. Sergeant Asa Johnson then knocked on the door and told Loud he could smell alcohol on her breath. Her BAC was tested and proved to be within the legal limit for driving. Nevertheless, Loud was given a choice of calling someone to take care of her or spending the night in the drunk tank. The latter option came to fruition, and the woman was led out of her home in handcuffs and taken to the Rockingham County Jail, where she remained overnight. According to reports obtained by the Boston Globe, McHugh and Johnson motivated the arrest by stating that they were trying to protect Loud from the mountains of trash in her home. Loud admitted that her home was a mess, but noted that aspect shouldn't have been of any concern to law enforcement. Loud later stated an intention of suing the force, saying, "I feel like I was violated. My rights was violated. I was in my own home. I wasn't staggering around." Johnson quit the force, and Northampton Police Chief Catherine Moan stepped down in the incident's aftermath. Number 4. Petronella Wyatt. British author and journalist Petronella Wyatt returned to her North London home on April the 6th of 2015 to find the house in disarray. Her mother, a dementia sufferer in her 80s, had pulled out suitcases from which clothes were streaming out The woman asked Wyatt, "Who are you? Why have you taken my things?" Wyatt had been living with her mother for some time and knew that her condition would often cause her to become paranoid and aggressive, in addition to failing to recognize her own daughter. When the woman threatened to call the police, Wyatt replied in frustration, "Do that." Her mother followed through on the threat and told the operator that Wyatt was trying to kill her. 3 officers responded and were led into the home by Wyatt's mother when they arrived. Wyatt would recount the events that followed in a Daily Mail article from February of 2023. She recalled the officers telling her that she was under arrest because they'd been told she was assaulting her mother. Wyatt burst into laughter, prepared to explain the situation, but her reaction reportedly angered the cops. She told them that her mother suffered from dementia and that she'd sometimes struggle with her grasp on reality, but her words were reportedly largely ignored by the police. Wyatt broke down into tears upon being told that she'd be taken to the police station. She laid on her bed in the fetal position, which led to the police accusing her of resisting arrest. She was dragged out of her house and into the back of the police van. Wyatt was ordered to shut up whenever she cried and told that she wouldn't be allowed to speak with her mother, even upon mentioning that the woman needed her heart pills. At the station, Wyatt was led into a cell and mocked as she insisted that she hadn't done anything wrong. She was held in custody for what she described as 6 hours of hell and questioned before she was released without charge. When Wyatt returned home, her mother had completely forgotten their previous interaction and told her, "Where have you been? I thought you were dead." For years following the incident, Wyatt struggled with night terrors and panic attacks, particularly when it came to any form of interaction with law enforcement. In the Daily Mail article, she concluded, "I can't say I am bitter at life, but I am bitter at the police. The law doesn't like to admit it's wrong." Number 3. Royal Ascot Incident. In the summer of 2023, a woman was pictured in handcuffs as she was escorted by 2 police officers while at the Royal Ascot Horse Racing Festival in Berkshire, England. Thames Valley law enforcement was expecting activists from Animal Rising to protest the race. The group had staged protests against harming animals at 4 high-profile horse racing events earlier in the year, including at the Epsom Derby and the Grand National. Over 100 people were arrested during the Grand National after protesters delayed the start of the race. Regarding the June arrest, the police had spotted the unnamed woman who was wearing a yellow floral dress as she was carrying some glue. The police believed that she planned on locking herself to something and took her into custody. She was promptly released after the officers realized that she hadn't intended to cause an offense and was actually using the glue for her fake nails. Today's topic was requested by Leon Moss 6014 and Dove Master. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brett Chamberlain. In July of 2020, Englishman Brett Chamberlain attempted to pay for fuel at an Exeter gas station using a 2016 Trafalgar Square Special Edition £100 coin. The 54-year-old carpenter was refused by staff even though such coins, only 45,000 of which were minted, were legal tender under the 1971 Coinage Act. The father of 4 from Devon was arrested on suspicion of making off without payment and interrogated by Exeter police for several hours. He was released while still under investigation and subsequently received a letter informing him that he wouldn't be charged. Coin collector Chamberlain had reportedly paid for fuel using the special edition coins at Morrison's, Asda and Sainsbury's without incident. He spoke to the media in the incident's wake and expressed astonishment at the fact that the authorities were prepared to prosecute him for using Royal Mint coins. The man decided to take legal action after failing to receive an adequate apology or an assurance the incident would be removed from the police national computer. Updates from the fall of 2021 indicated he'd received a £5,000 compensation. If you have not yet seen our release about when not paying attention goes wrong, then we have that lined up for you right after number 1. Stick around if you'd like. Number 1. Buon Sarmiento. Footage from Redmond in King County, Washington showed a skateboarder being controversially taken into custody on January the 17th of 2019 upon getting off the bus in the Edge skate park area. Buon took a diagonal path across a small street, foregoing the use of the pedestrian crossing. In the moments that followed, he was approached by two bike-riding female officers of the Redmond Police Department. One of them pulled on Sarmiento's hoodie and the other threw his backpack to the ground as both proceeded to handcuff him. Sarmiento's friend, Alex Ha, recorded the interaction, during which one of the officers was heard saying, "When we tell you to stop, you stop. That is called obstructing. Everybody, learn." At that moment, Sarmiento gave an over-the-shoulder look to the camera and cracked a smile with an expression of confusion on his face. Upon being asked why he was detained, the officers answered in unison, "Jaywalking." One of them had told Sarmiento to stop, but he'd reportedly failed to hear her because of his loud board. As others at the scene questioned the arrest, they pointed to the fact that countless pedestrians used the same path as Sarmiento on a daily basis. The latter's sister subsequently revealed that he spent 24 hours in jail in Des Moines and that he wasn't able to reach his family. She would accuse the police of singling him out truly for being a person of color. The video of Sarmiento's arrest went viral, and many users were critical of the police's reaction to the jaywalking offense, which normally should have only resulted in a fine. Number 9. Lauren K. Scott. In June of 2017, an adult film actress was arrested for hitting a man with whom she was involved in an intimate relationship. 23-year-old Lauren K. Scott, professionally known as Dakota Sky, was at the home of boyfriend Robert Anderson in Pinellas Park, Florida. They'd reportedly been seeing each other for roughly 6 months, even though Las Vegas marriage records indicated that, at the time, Scott was married to agent Zachary LeCompte Goebel. After she and Anderson had had intercourse, the former became angry that Scott wasn't paying attention to him and wouldn't get off her phone. An argument ensued that culminated with the adult actress striking him in the face with an open right hand, splitting open his bottom lip. He called the authorities and Scott was arrested, listing the adult industry as her employer in the resulting affidavit. She was charged with misdemeanor domestic battery and released on her own recognizance, but the charges were ultimately dropped. It's unclear if drugs or alcohol had been involved in the incident, but Scott was known to have struggled with severe addiction. A few years after the battery incident, on June the 8th of 2021, she called friends to say that she was going to become a Hells Angel biker because the police and the mafia were after her. She reportedly asked them for a place to stay on the night, but everyone refused her. The woman, who'd appeared in over 300 films and had once been among the top searches on adult websites, was found dead the following day in a stranger's RV on Los Angeles' Skid Row. The cause of her passing remained undetermined as of the latest updates on the matter. Number 8. New Jersey woman. An unnamed New Jersey woman took a hard fall in June of 2017 as she was walking on the street in Plainfield and got distracted by her cell phone. The 67-year-old woman approached basement doors which had been left open for gas line repairs. The woman kept looking at her phone and didn't turn to avoid them. She flipped over a door and plunged headfirst roughly 6 feet into the basement. The woman, whose son claims suffered from poor eyesight, was pulled out on a stretcher by fire crews. She was reported to have sustained serious injuries in the fall, but was subsequently pronounced as being in a stable condition. Number 7. Charlotte Buesden. An inquest into the traffic collision death of an English woman proposed in early 2022 that she'd lost control of her vehicle while watching an episode of a reality TV show on her cell phone. On August the 23rd of the previous year, Charlotte Buesden was traveling on a busy road in Kemsley, Kent, in her Nissan Qashqai. At around 7:30 a.m., shortly after dropping her son off at school, Buesden veered into oncoming traffic. A lorry driver, which the inquest concluded had no chance of avoiding the 28-year-old's Nissan, crashed into her. Buesden succumbed to a severe skull fracture in the aftermath. Her phone was found attached to a magnetic clip on the dashboard and displaying an error message, which indicated that the device had become disconnected from an episode of Love Island. Dashcam footage from the lorry was of poor quality, according to the authorities, but it did appear to show that Buesden had been looking in the direction of her phone and then moving her arm towards where it had been mounted. It was thus suspected that she hadn't been paying attention while driving because she'd been watching the show. Number 6. Sarah Fullard. On June the 3rd of 2021, Englishwoman Sarah Fullard had finished assembling a flat-pack coffee table in the garden of her home in Hull, East Yorkshire. A neighbour later recounted seeing Fullard at work and how she appeared to be excited she had managed to put it up herself. The 42-year-old reportedly decided to celebrate the completed project by pouring herself a few drinks. When the unnamed neighbour looked over the fence once more, he saw her slumped over the coffee table and immediately called the emergency services. Fullard was subsequently pronounced dead, and a post-mortem found the cause to have been positional asphyxia. It was determined that at some point the woman had tripped over the same coffee table she'd previously assembled. She was knocked unconscious in the fall and ended up in a position that rendered her unable to breathe. The examination found that Fullard had moderate to severe alcohol intoxication, but although it was regarded as increasing the risk of a fall, alcohol wasn't listed as the primary factor in the accident. Additionally, Fullard's liver was reported as being in healthy condition, suggesting she'd never been a heavy drinker. Number 5. Tas Patel. 24-year-old Tas Patel died in January of 2015 after accidentally stepping in front of a train at the Morningside station in Auckland, New Zealand. Patel had gotten off a passenger train while reportedly looking into his cell phone, and as another train was approaching from the opposite direction. It was below the maximum line speed at the time, while barriers and warnings were reportedly working accurately. Seemingly unaware of his surroundings, Patel walked from the platform through an unguarded opening, and in doing so, ended up directly in the path of the oncoming train. He was struck and killed instantly. In the tragedy's aftermath, Patel's mother asked for enhanced safety measures at the country's rail crossings, while Auckland's Indian community raised $10,000 for Patel's father to accompany his body back to India. A report from the Transport Accident Investigation Commission found that the rail operators and providers had to take cell phone use into their risk assessment when designing or implementing rail safety. Number 4. Craig Harden. 60-year-old Englishwoman Marilyn McKnight was left with life-changing injuries following a devastating car accident that took place on Mother's Day 2015. She'd been traveling in a Ford car with her son and daughter-in-law to visit her elderly mother. Craig Harden, age 44, was behind the wheel of a Volkswagen Polo and not paying attention to the road in front because he was looking at an accident on the other side of the A19 near Hutton Henry, County Durham. In doing so, Harden failed to notice that the cars in front had slowed down and slammed into the back of the Ford at considerable speed, nearly toppling it on its roof. Much like Harden, McKnight's family wasn't reported as being in life-threatening condition, but the woman received extensive treatment at the scene prior to being airlifted to a hospital. McKnight became permanently blind in one eye and sustained severe spinal injuries that rendered her unable to walk and only have minimal movement in her arms. Police subsequently released a video of the harrowing crash in an effort to raise awareness to the dangers of being distracted at the wheel. Harden, who admitted he'd been momentarily distracted, was charged with causing serious injury by dangerous driving and sentenced to 10 months in prison. Number 3. Elena Glader. On a Sunday morning in September of 2016, married beauty consultant Elena Glader and her lover were having drinks while watching the sunrise on the roof of her Midtown Manhattan apartment building. The pair got locked out at some point, and after exhausting all avenues for regaining access, 27-year-old Glader called her husband to let her back inside. As she waited and as her date was hiding on the roof, Glader reportedly dangled her legs over a ledge. The woman, who was reported as inebriated at the time, then lost her footing and fell from the 5-story building at 449 West 37th Street. The New York Post reported that when Glader's husband eventually made his way to the roof, he was told that she'd fallen by the other man. Glader's body became trapped between two buildings, and the fire department had to borrow a ladder from a porter to reach her. Glader, who'd only been wearing a brassiere and underwear when rescuers found her, was subsequently pronounced dead at Bellevue Hospital. In the immediate aftermath, the woman's distraught husband told a media outlet that he was scrambling to get in touch with his late spouse's relatives in her native Russia. Number 2. Uroko or Noja. An argument within a polygamous marriage ended in the death of a Nigerian man in the summer of 2012. In the early hours of the morning, Uroko Noja returned to his home in Ogbugbo, Ogbadibo. After spending some time at a local bar, he headed to the bedroom with only the youngest of his 6 wives, and they became intimate. The other women flew into a fit of collective rage because they weren't receiving the same type of attention. They reportedly burst into the bedroom and set upon Noja with knives and sticks, demanding he have intercourse with each of them as well. According to Nigeria's Daily Post, the man had attempted to resist the demands of his wives, but was ultimately overpowered. He was forced to perform as ordered with 4 of the women in succession. However, as the 5th was making her way to bed, Noja stopped breathing. The businessman, described as a philanthropist and a positive contributor to his community, couldn't be resuscitated. His youngest wife subsequently told the authorities that the others had fled into the forest upon realizing their husband was unresponsive. Local media would later report that he'd been abused to death and at least 2 of his wives were arrested. Number 1. Accident in Oklahoma. 6 Oklahoma teenagers were killed in a car crash on March the 22nd of 2022 after the vehicle in which they'd been traveling was struck by a semi-truck at a notoriously dangerous intersection. Near Tishomingo, Madison Robertson was driving while accompanied by 5 friends in a 2015 Chevrolet Spark, a small car only meant to seat 4. The passengers were identified as Gracie Mercado, Brooklyn Triplett, Austin Holt, Addison Gratz, and Memory Wilson. Robertson approached the stop sign at an intersection locally known as the Y, found at a 90-degree curve of US 377 from east to south. The junction had long been criticized by residents for how easy it was for drivers to pull into oncoming traffic, but their pleas for changes had largely gone unanswered. In spite of the well-known dangers, reports suggested that Robertson hadn't paid adequate attention to the oncoming truck, while also reportedly rolling through the stop sign. 51-year-old Bernieville man Valendon Burton was driving the semi, which was hauling rocks at the time. He plowed into the Chevrolet and the devastating impact mangled the smaller car, ripping its doors off and throwing it roughly 300 feet from the intersection. 4 of the teens, including Robertson, died at the scene, while the remaining 2 passed away at a local hospital. A review by the National Transportation Safety Board found that Robertson had cannabis in her system and that she'd also violated the law by driving on an intermediate license while not having a fully qualified driver aged 21 or older supervising her. Burton, who didn't suffer any serious injuries in the crash, hadn't been charged in connection to it as of early May 2022. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend a month in a Norwegian prison or a week in a Slovakian hostel? Let us know in the comments section below.